Vaughn Smith can speak 8 languages fluently, and he can carry on conversations in a total of 24 languages by his count. He's what's known as a hyper-polyglot.
You can think of language kind of as a shortcut for telepathy, because we have thoughts in our heads, and we use this common code, which speakers of the same language have access to basically share thoughts with each other.
Vaughn grew up in and around Washington, D.C., where he learned as many languages as he could from the multicultural community around him. He loves meeting new people, which is why we introduced him to Richard Simcott, who organizes an international conference for polyglots. They were able to switch seamlessly between 10 languages.
Entonces el español para ti también es un idioma que habla en casa.
Sí, hablamos español aquí en la casa, el español mexicano. Je talas volledig Islandsk. Mijn favoriete is Bulgar, para falar. Ja, ik heb een vriendin uit München.
Nederlands kan je ook spreken.
Ja, de laatste maal spreek Nederlands, dat was in Starbucks.
As a reporter, I wanted to understand what was going on in Vaughn's brain that made it possible for him to do this. I called a neuroscientist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology who studies language. She invited Vaughn to have his brain scanned as a part of her research on the brains of advanced language learners.
There's basically a handful of regions that comprise this, what we call the language network. There's a big swath of activity that you would see spanning the temporal lobe. So it goes from the tip of the temporal lobe all the way to the back and a little bit into the parietal cortex. And there's a few regions in the frontal cortex. It's a very integrated system, meaning that these regions work very closely together to process language. We've been studying for a while diverse populations with communication disorders. There's both developmental disorders like autism, and there's acquired disorders like aphasia. I've always been interested in what happens on the other end of that spectrum of ability, because of course, the vast majority of language research is done on kind of neurotypical, usual users of language.
They also scanned me. By comparing the brain of a monolingual like me to a hyperpolyglot like Vaughn, we could learn something about what makes the brains of hyperpolyglots unique.
But there's this long tail, and there are these people who have really massive vocabulary. So there are people who can learn a lot of languages. And it seemed clear that we can maybe learn something about how language works by looking at that end of kind of linguistic expertise.
The research team later shared the results of our scans. I had assumed that Vaughn's language areas would be way bigger and more active than mine, but the scans actually showed the opposite. The parts of Vaughn's brain that are used to comprehend language are far smaller and quieter than mine. The brains of hyperpolyglots are simply more efficient.
What we're currently working on is try to see how your language network is recruited across the different languages that you speak. It seems to be that your language network is recruited less. You'd expect then for English to be like a smaller network. I didn't know Spanish was your mother tongue, so I guess you would expect to pattern it up with English because these are the two languages you've been speaking it since birth. And then for the other languages, so I would assume that then when he is like speaking Dutch, because he's not as good as he is with English, he'll still need more oxygen in order to engage those language regions in order to produce the language, because maybe it's a little harder for him.
Yeah, after work, it's like a logic puzzle. Try to put words together to find out what one word means. So I'm using context and stuff. I don't even have to look at a dictionary. Usually I could just guess what it is, or I have a bracket of what it is. It could mean 7 different things.
Some polyglots don't even say that it's really easy for them. They say no, they just work really hard and spend a lot of time, kind of the whole 10,000 hours idea.
You can see I'm on a 343-day streak. It's almost been a year. 30 minutes a day is what I aim for.